Is hypnotherapy and hypnosis effective for chronic pain? If you search online for an answer to this question, you'll usually find the same answers. Yes, hypnosis can help people cope better with their pain. It can help getting more relaxed, getting more acceptance towards symptoms. And for a long time, that was the frame. That was what we call the coping model, where hypnosis and hypnotherapy were primarily used to help people live with their pain. But that's not the case anymore. You see, we can now go way beyond that with our current understanding of how pain works in the brain. And in this video, I want to discuss how to go beyond just coping, but rather using hypnosis and hypnotherapy to train the brain to reduce pain or eliminate it completely. So let's begin by understanding the traditional role of hypnotherapy in chronic pain management. Historically, hypnotherapy has been used to change the subjective experience of pain. So through suggestion and focused attention, people could experience the pain as less intense and less emotionally distressing. So that was very helpful, and it still is. However, the underlying assumption is that chronic pain is something permanent, something you simply have to deal with. Therefore, the therapeutic approaches were aimed at coping and accepting and simply trying to get through life with the pain. That's not the case anymore. Over the last 2 decades, neuroscience has developed a new understanding of how pain works in the brain. We now know that many forms of chronic pain are driven by learned responses from neural circuits in the brain rather than injury or disease. When this happens, it's called neuroplastic pain or mind-body syndrome. And if you want to understand this more deeply, I invite you to check out the other videos on my channel where I go into depth on what this is and how you can recognize it. I would really recommend you to watch the one called What is Neuroplastic Pain? In the description below this video, you can also find a link to an assessment that will help you figure out whether or not you have neuroplastic pain. So you can check that out in the description. But essentially what happens is that the brain will interpret some sort of danger or threat in its inner or outer environment, and it can produce pain as a result. You see, all pain is generated by the brain. That's how it makes sense that the brain can just produce it without any apparent reason, because it has that power to do so. You see, even if you cut your finger and roll your ankle, those signals, what we call pain signals or nociceptive signals, they will come up to the brain, and the brain will interpret whether or not to switch on the pain to alert you to an injury or a problem. But those neural circuits that get switched on to produce the pain, those can get switched on even in the absence of any injury or disease or problem. So even when nothing is wrong in the body, those neural circuits of pain can still be switched on. And that is what neuroplastic pain essentially is. And this shift in understanding opened the door to a new perspective of how we treat chronic pain. So instead of simply trying to live with the pain and cope with it, we now have a model of understanding that allows us to actually retrain the brain to reduce the symptoms and the pain, and in a lot of cases even eliminate it completely. We now know that when people experience symptoms and pain, and they can internalize a sense of safety, that the pain is not actually dangerous, then the brain and the nervous system will experience what we call a corrective experience. And as the brain realizes that symptoms are actually safe and not dangerous, the learned fear response, the emotional stress will decrease, and the threat signals in the brain will also decrease. And that allows the brain to start to switch off these neural circuits that produce the pain. We call this breaking the pain-fear cycle. The regions of the brain that process pain also process emotional pain. And that's why emotional stress feelings of threat and discomfort and fear and anxiety and worry can contribute to pain flaring up. So when we're breaking this pain-fear cycle, the brain and the nervous system will experience these corrective experiences and start to switch off the neural circuits. And this is called neural circuit retraining, because that's what's happening at the brain level. This is where hypnotherapy becomes far more powerful than it was in the past. Hypnosis is a state of focused attention and increased learning. In that state, the brain becomes more receptive to new interpretations, to updated predictions, and towards emotional corrective experiences. When hypnotherapy is combined with neural circuit retraining, it can directly support the unlearning of pain in the brain and in the nervous system. Hypnosis can be used to reinforce safety signals in the brain. It can be used to update the brain's prediction that pain is necessary, and it can be used to reduce the fear response related to pain and symptoms. Rather than using hypnosis to teach you to tolerate pain and to live with it, we can use it to retrain the brain to reduce or eliminate it completely. Chronic pain is not maintained by conscious thoughts. It's maintained by automatic predictions and learned responses in the brain, and these are outside of our conscious awareness. Hypnotherapy provides a way for us to directly approach these patterns and change the brain for the better. And this is called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to actually change. And this is why it's called neuroplastic pain. The brain can learn and change into a mode where it produces pain, and it can change into a state where it does not. When used intentionally, hypnosis directly supports the mechanisms of neural circuit retraining, which helps the brain reduce or eliminate pain. It does so by helping the brain experience a sense of safety and by breaking the pain-fear cycle. On my channel, you will find another video that goes much more deeply into what the pain-fear cycle is and how you can start to break it. So to sum it all up, is hypnosis and hypnotherapy effective for chronic pain? And the answer is yes, but there's a distinction there. You see, previously, hypnosis were used to cope with pain and to help people live with it. But combined with neural circuit retraining, hypnosis and hypnotherapy can actually be used to help retrain the brain out of pain. So the question is no longer if hypnosis is helpful to help you deal with the pain. The question becomes whether the pain still needs to be there at all. If you have chronic pain and you want to see if hypnosis and neural circuit retraining can help you, then you can book a consultation using the link in the description. That's everything from me today. I'll see you in the next video.